Hey, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse. And I think this might be my favorite seated scooter for right now.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll get to it next on Now Let's Review. All right, so what we got here is the Caroma electric scooter. It is the E68 Pro 500 watt seated scooter. And I just want to point out, you can very easily, with 4 screws, take the seated part off. When you add it back on, you do get this cool seat.
Seated or standing scooter. There are some scooters out there that have built-in seats where you can't really remove them and stand up on them. Let's get right into some of the stats. The first one, I think most importantly, is the price.
Yeah, $399 on their website. I think that's a pretty decent price, but let's talk about what you get for that. So we start off with the 10-inch tires. These are solid tires, so they're not pneumatic, which I actually now think is good. It's a less comfortable ride in terms of it's not going to absorb bumps, but you're never going to have to worry about that horrible problem of when your tire pops, because if your tire pops, especially on the motor side, it's really hard to fix.
So you don't have to worry about that. You can ride this thing until you wear the rubber down to nothing, which would probably take you thousands and thousands of miles. That's awesome.
There are 3 speeds on this scooter. Top speed is 20 miles an hour, but if you're not up for that, or you're giving it to someone who's a little bit new, you can put it on speed 1, which is 10 miles an hour. Second speed is 15.5, and top speed is 20 miles an hour.
That's great.
The range. The stated range is 25 miles, although I was reading a bunch of reviews and a lot of people were saying they were getting 20 miles of range. I think it really does depend on how fast you're going, how much acceleration, how much you weigh, and that kind of stuff. You know, lots of hills, not lots of hills. But I would think if you're hoping for 20 miles, that's probably more realistic.
And that would be basically a 10-mile round trip, which is pretty far on a scooter.
Yeah, because if you're going to charge it at work, it will take a few hours. I would say probably 5 to 6 hours to charge it up, so you'd have to be there for quite a while. You can go up a maximum of a 15-degree slope with the scooter, otherwise you're going to have to get out and walk or be pushing it with your feet. So let's talk about the foldability of this scooter. I think you should demonstrate it.
Sure. So you have basically what is essentially just the same thing as this seat lock. Then they have a safety catch. So you undo this part, you fold it down out of the way, push on the safety catch and move it down. And to fold it a little bit tighter, you can also loosen up the seat so that way it'll kind of go off at a little angle. Then over here, you push up on this little nub, pull down, and then this part folds down.
But wait, how do you lock it?
So in order to lock it, you actually have to get this to the right length, which is probably the finickiest part. They have this little thing here, which you might be like, that's a weird bell. Not a bell, it's the locking mechanism for the scooter. That comes in and locks right there. And so now,
yeah, so here's my problem with the scooter. I tried this a few times, and if you're not very, very careful, this will unlock while you're carrying
it. And so this is supposed to be the carrying handle, just like this. It's pretty heavy, but you know, holding it a little bit lower is easier.
It's not a hook here, it's just square. And so it will,
if you put it down or if you jounce it, it'll
unlock. And so I'm just afraid that if you're in a rush for a train or something, that it might come loose.
I would hope that whatever mode of transportation you're taking this on, unless it's a car, if it's a bus or a train, I would hope that you could kind of walk it up or at least lift it by the handlebars up onto whatever you're taking.
Yeah, we're putting the weight up on screen here. It is a little bit, I would say, bulky. This adds a little bit of weight to it, and it's not the kind of thing I would want to use on my commute if I had to do a train every single day.
Sure.
For occasional stairs and train, I think it's fine, but I don't know, it's just a little, for me, it's a little heavy.
I think you could walk it onto a train. It's small enough to where maybe somebody might be like, there's a special rule about scooters, but I think that most people are going to be just fine. This will fit in the seat with you and it won't, you know, be so bulky. And the other cool thing is that you can fold the handlebars.
Oh.
So they kind of just pop out.
But that's great because it would have taken up way more space.
Yeah, so this actually shrinks down a lot smaller than the first scooter I ever got, which was the 9-bot.
This will fit in most trunks.
This will definitely fit in most trunks. The tallest, most bulkiest piece is going to be this dimension because this is narrower and it's honestly folds up really great.
And as Jesse puts it back together, I want to point out that what you'll probably be using a lot is actually this telescoping part, because when you sit on it, we've found that you can sit on it in kind of a high mode, but I was kind of liking being lower.
Yes.
It lets your feet get on the ground faster, and it makes me at least feel a little bit more safe.
And the way that this one is made, it really allows you to sit your feet up on the deck. There's a nice wide deck compared to a lot of other e-scooters. I think that that's kind of a nice piece to it as well.
Yeah, they widen the deck to 180 millimeters. So, and it's got these nice little rubber nubbies that'll hold your feet on there steady.
But you do have some adjustability. That's max height right there, which is very high. It's kind of like somewhere in between a squat and a stand. and then you can bring it basically all the way down. I wouldn't go all the way down, because then where it necks in, you'd lose that clamping, and then it would spin. So right about there is the lowest. I liked it on the lowest setting. Well, you're much harder to see,
Right.
because you're so low. And then you can also bring the handlebar down as well, and that will make it comfortable to ride. Listen, I'm not gonna say that you don't look like a complete dweeb riding it, but if you're not a guy who has to worry about that kind of thing, I think it's perfectly reasonable for you to be doing that.
And I want to mention something that I didn't know it had until I gave it a closer examination. If you flip it on its side so everyone can look here, it's got rear suspension. Look at this. It's got a spring.
Definitely for the heaviest of bumps. It does feel like it doesn't have suspension, but I'm assuming that basically if you go over like a pothole, this might absorb some of it and keep your kneecaps from popping off.
Right. I mean, let's talk about, so we've been riding it around, and I found it to be very similar ride to many other scooters in this price range. There's nothing to write home about, but it did feel very solid. There are some scooters that you get where you feel like there's going to be a problem down the road. This one felt really good. One thing I will point out is the turning radius. So they lock it here and here, probably around a 15-degree angle, which means, I mean, normally while you're riding, you're not going to turn it much more than that, but it is nice when you're getting onto a train or something to be able to turn it
Really tight.
tighter, and you can't do that here. I assume that's something to do with the folding mechanism or the wiring.
Yeah, I think it's mainly the wiring. It's too bad because, yeah, with a full 90-degree or even more degree turn, then you can really maneuver stuff in tight spaces, whereas you're not going to be able to really with the way that it's set up now. I want to talk about the 500-watt motor.
Oh yeah.
Really good. 500 watts is just about, I would say, the minimum for what I would want in an electric scooter. When electric scooters were first coming out, 250 watts was kind of the norm, and that was enough to actually get you going, but 500 watts is going to be able to actually get you up a hill, which I think is pretty important, especially if you're going to be in a seated position.
Yeah, no, I think it's kind of the right power. I would call this a really good scooter for a campus, or what I'm going to call a familiar route. So what I mean is, you're commuting to work every day for a mile or something that you know that route really well, and you feel that this would work well on that route. Whereas when you go off of familiar routes and now you get into places where you're not really sure if there's potholes or things like that, maybe not the strength. But if it's familiar, I think this scooter could be really good for commuters.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the seat. They put a basic standard seat on there. It has some cushion, which is nice. It's definitely not the most Spartan bike seat I've ever seen, but you can upgrade this. You can get a much wider, much more comfortable seat. And since you're going to be actually seated on it, you may as well go for, I mean, they sell ones that are actually more like chairs.
Yeah, I mean, on our Now We Adventure channel, we just went for a ride and you were trying out a more comfortable seat. What did you think?
I really liked it. I think that it made a really big difference. Now, I was pedaling and biking and stuff like that with this. I mean, aside from the fact that you might need to jump off of it, so you probably don't want to back on it, I would say go for the comfiest seat you can possibly get, because who cares? You're already riding around something that looks like this, so get something that makes your butt feel good as you're riding along.
And then lastly, it's got a headlight. It's pretty powerful, and so I think that does the trick for all of your visibility needs. And it's got a rear light as well, which is going to make you pretty visible on the road.
And it also flashes.
Oh, there we go.
There's our lights on the side here. Yeah, so adding a bit of visibility is nice.
Yeah, it always helps.
These blue LEDs, kind of hard to see. We have a well-lit set. But these flash blue, it definitely gets people's attention.
Yeah, and that's what you want.
Yep.
You don't want to get hit. So I would say if you're looking for a budget scooter, especially with the seat, this could be definitely one that you should put on your list. Nothing really wrong with it, and the fact that it's got some suspension is kind of amazing.
I think this would be great for a kid, kind of in the 13 to 17 age range, maybe more like 16.
So middle school, high school?
I would say so. This would extend their range. This would be like, all right, you can take your scooter to soccer practice. I don't need to drive you every single day, especially if you know that route and you think that there's a safe way to go. I would definitely, if you're doing this with a child, I would definitely make sure that they know which route is going to be the safest and that they're not going to take a major road where they could be hit by a car. But I think that this is very sidewalk friendly, because you can slow way down to basically zero without having to step over or do anything goofy.
And you can slow down to a stop and put your feet down, which is really nice.
And without any motor power, you can just kind of walk it too. which means that even if there's someone like in a wheelchair or something that's going to be taking up most of the sidewalk, you can still kind of scooch over to the side and let them pass without being completely rude and being like, I am in the way on my bike. This is just such a urban friendly little piece of commuting. I love it.
Yeah, so let us know down in the comments if you've got questions or if you have things you'd like us to review here on Now Let's Review, because that's what we're here for. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe button before you go, and thank you so much for watching Now Let's Review.